The letter that shouldn't exist. Rain tapped softly against the narrow windows of Eleanor Holloway's bookshop, a rhythmic hush that failed to calm the chaos unfolding inside her chest. It had been 3 years since James Clark vanished without a trace. No phone call, no goodbye. Only a cold silence where once there had been promises whispered beneath linen sheets. Eleanor had buried him in her mind. A ghost. A wound healed badly. Until today. The letter had arrived that morning unmarked, sealed in black wax. Her name, written in his unmistakable handwriting, stared at her like a wound reopening. If you're reading this, I'm already dead. I never meant to leave you the way I did. But they were watching. Dilar. You need to run. Now. Her hands trembled as she finished the last line. Beneath it, coordinates. A place she hadn't heard in years, Blackridge Hollow, a forgotten village on the coast. The place where they'd first met. Eleanor stood motionless for minutes, clutching the letter, heart pounding like war drums. Why now? Why after all this time? She locked the shop without another thought and packed a duffel. Cash, a map, her late father's old revolver. Something in her gut screamed that this wasn't just about James. It was about her. By the time she reached the village, dusk had swallowed the sky. Blackridge Hollow was just as she remembered. Isolated, windswept, and eerie. Only the sea dared to speak, crashing violently against the cliffs. She reached the old chapel. The door creaked open. Inside, candlelight flickered and a shadow moved. He stepped forward. Older. Paler. But unmistakably James. Eleanor's breath caught. You're supposed to be dead. He didn't smile. So are you. Beneath the chapel. Eleanor froze, her fingers tightening around the strap of her bag. The candlelight cast long, dancing shadows on the stone walls, making James look even more like a phantom than a man. For a moment she considered running, turning her back on the madness and pretending she never saw that letter. But she couldn't. Not now. Not after 3 years of pain and unanswered questions. James stepped closer. I had no choice, Elle. They told me if I stayed, you'd be the one to disappear. Disappear. Her voice cracked. You vanished, James. I buried you in my head. You let me believe you were dead. I had to. They were watching everything. Emails, calls. There was no way to say goodbye without putting a target on you. Eleanor stared at him, searching for a lie in his eyes. Who are they, James? And why now? He exhaled slowly and handed her a weathered leather journal from inside his coat. Everything I know is in here. Names, places, the project I stumbled into. Goes back years. Decades, maybe. She flipped through pages covered in his scrawled handwriting, old photographs, diagrams, notes in the margins. One symbol kept appearing. An Ouroboros wrapped in thorns. What is this? James' voice lowered. A group called the 13th Order. They operate under the guise of think tanks, private security firms, even universities. I was working with one of them. Until I found out the truth. What truth? That we're just experiments to them. Controlled. Watched. And when someone steps out of line, his gaze darkened. They vanish. A loud creak echoed through the chapel. Eleanor's heart stopped. James grabbed her wrist. We need to go. Now. Where? To someone who still remembers us, before they erase her too. The keeper of secrets. Eleanor followed James through the misty back alleys of Cambridge, her breath visible in the early spring air. Her mind swirled with disbelief and questions. The city felt different now. Its historic charm warped by shadowy threats and hidden agendas. Every passing stranger seemed like a potential spy. James stopped in front of a faded red door tucked between 2 bookshops. She lives here. Goes by Miss Wren now. Wren. Eleanor raised an eyebrow. She was one of our professors. Ancient history. Remember? Eleanor did. Professor Wren had been sharp-eyed and eccentric, always carrying stacks of books and muttering about forgotten civilizations. James knocked in a rhythm, 2 slow, 3 fast. The door creaked open. A woman in her 60s with silver hair peered out. Her eyes locked onto Eleanor before she opened the door wider. You brought her. You knew I'd come? Eleanor asked, stepping in. Wren nodded. They watch everyone. But not me. Not anymore. They think I've lost my mind. Her eyes glinted. Useful, isn't it? Inside, the flat was cluttered with ancient scrolls, half-burnt maps, and conspiracy boards covered in strings and symbols. Eleanor spotted the same Ouroboros with thorns emblem pinned in the center. They've existed since the fall of Rome, Wren explained. The 13th Order manipulates from the shadows power, bloodlines, knowledge. James wasn't the first to uncover them, but he might be the last who lived. James leaned over the table. We need to know how to bring them down. Wren's expression darkened. Then you need the ledger. The original. It holds the names of every order affiliate alive today. But it's not here. Where is it? Eleanor asked. Wren hesitated. Buried beneath the foundation of the old cathedral. But if you go there, they'll come for you. Eleanor's heart pounded. Then let them. I've spent 3 years grieving a ghost. I won't hide anymore. Beneath sacred stones, the cathedral loomed like a slumbering beast, its stained glass windows casting fractured rainbows onto the stone floor. Eleanor stood at the entrance with James, her fingers trembling slightly as she adjusted the hood of her coat. Despite the weight of the centuries pressing in around her, it was her own heartbeat that thundered loudest. Do you remember sneaking in here during final exams? James whispered, a ghost of a smile on his lips. Back when we thought secrets were just exam questions, Eleanor replied. They descended into the crypts through a side door Wren had once shown them during a school tour. Back when it was just history. Now every worn step downward felt like a descent into the heart of something ancient and dangerous. The air grew colder. Dust coated everything like time frozen in motion. They reached the lower level. Its stone walls carved with Latin inscriptions. James traced one with his finger. In manus tuas domini. Into your hands, O Lord, he translated softly. A prayer, Eleanor said. Or a warning. In the farthest alcove they found a loose slab in the floor, just as Wren had described. James pried it up with a crowbar. Beneath, wrapped in aged leather and bound in tarnished gold wire, lay a book no larger than a Bible. The ledger. Eleanor knelt beside it. Her fingers hovered, then touched the cover. A jolt like static shot through her. The names inside pulsed with an eerie energy, as if they were alive. Politicians, judges, professors, even clergy. They're everywhere, she whispered. This is enough to destroy them. Suddenly a crash echoed from above. James stiffened. They're here. Footsteps, heavy, deliberate, pounded above them. Shadows flickered across the stairs. Eleanor grabbed the ledger, her eyes meeting James's. No matter what happens, he said, pulling her close, you run. A chase through echoes. The crypt exploded into motion. Eleanor bolted down a narrow corridor, her boots thudding against ancient stone. Behind her, footsteps echoed, closer, heavier. James had stayed behind, blocking their pursuers. The thought twisted her stomach, but she clutched the ledger tighter and kept running. The corridor led to a spiral staircase, barely wide enough for one person. She ascended blindly, heart pounding, lungs burning. At the top, a rusted iron gate. Locked. She cursed under her breath and turned, just as the echoing footsteps reached the base of the stairs. Give it up, girl. A voice snarled, low, guttural, unrecognizable. That book belongs to the Order. Funny, Eleanor called, breathless. Looks like it's mine now. The man appeared in the shadows below, face obscured, but his presence heavy like a storm cloud. He took a step forward, but she slammed the gate shut and wedged a nearby candlestick into the latch. It bought her seconds. She turned and ran down another corridor, narrower, darker. The walls here bore frescoes half destroyed by time, saints with eyes scratched out, halos faded. The silence here wasn't peace, it was warning. At the far end, moonlight poured through a stained glass window. She pushed it open. Wind whipped her hair back as she looked down. A narrow alley, 3 stories below. She didn't hesitate. Eleanor climbed onto the sill, heart in her throat, ledger tucked under her coat. She leapt. She hit the ground hard, her knees buckling, but she kept the ledger safe. Pain shot through her leg, but she forced herself upright. Behind her, voices barked orders. Her pursuers had found the open window. She limped into the shadows of the alley, disappearing into the night. A truth buried in ash. Eleanor crouched in the corner of an abandoned flat above a pub in Southwark. Rain beat against the window panes like the pulse in her head. The air smelled of mold and old tobacco. Her coat, still damp from the alley jump, clung to her like second skin. She'd wrapped her ankle, now swollen and sore, with a strip torn from the curtain. The ledger lay open on the floor beside her, pages scrawled with names, transactions, and symbols she couldn't yet decipher. But the last entry chilled her blood. St. Owen's Orphanage, £15,000. Subject, E. Blackwell. Her name. The orphanage she barely remembered. She ran her fingers over the ink. The entry dated only a week before her mother died. Why would the order pay that kind of money for her? She wasn't rich. She wasn't powerful. She was expendable. Her thoughts spiraled, then froze as she heard a knock. 3 taps, a pause, then 2 more. James's signal. Eleanor scrambled to the door and cracked it open. He stood there, soaked to the bone, a gash bleeding above his brow. "You look awful," he said, grinning weakly. "You should see the other guy," she muttered, letting him in. He handed her a folded paper. "Got it from an old friend at the archives. It's your birth certificate." She unfolded it slowly. Her hands trembled as she read. Mother, Evelyn Blackwell. Father unknown. Scrawled below in faded blue ink. Child transferred to St. Owen's by order of Lord Ashcombe. Her heart stopped. Ashcombe? That's chairman of the order. Has been for 2 decades, James said grimly. They've been keeping tabs on you since the day you were born. Eleanor's fingers curled around the edge of the certificate. Her life wasn't just stolen. It was engineered, bought, controlled. She looked at James. Then it's time we pay Lord Ashcombe a visit. He nodded. But if we go to war with the order, there's no going back. I never planned to. Outside, the rain turned to thunder. War had begun. The enemy's mask. Eleanor stood in front of the estate gates of Lord Ashcombe, heart pounding like war drums. The sprawling mansion loomed ahead. Stone, iron, and shadows. Guards patrolled lazily in the rain, unaware of what the night would bring. James crouched beside her, examining the blueprint of the estate. The west wing's where the study is. That's where he keeps sensitive records. And the truth, Eleanor said, jaw clenched. They slipped through the fence, skirts of shadow trailing them. Every creak, every footstep echoed too loudly in Eleanor's head. They moved like ghosts, guided only by fury. Inside, the manor was silent. Paintings of grim-faced ancestors lined the walls. The air smelled of leather, dust, and something older, like secrets too long buried. They reached the study. James picked the lock with ease. The door swung open to reveal a room drenched in mahogany and candlelight. At the far end, standing by the fire, was Lord Ashcombe himself. I wondered when you'd come, he said, voice low and cold. Eleanor froze. You knew. He turned, revealing a face aged by power but eerily calm. Of course. The moment your mother wrote me the letter warning you'd one day find this place, I prepared. My mother. Her voice cracked. Yes, he said, stepping closer. She was one of us. A brilliant mind. Until she fell in love with the wrong man and tried to run. You killed her. No, he said. She chose death. She refused to let you be part of this world, refused to hand you over to us. So she hid you. Eleanor's fist shook. Why me? Why now? Because you're not just Evelyn's daughter. You're heir to the vault key. The one thing that can destroy the order, or control it. James looked at her, stunned. Ashcombe smiled. It's in your blood. Before they could react, guards burst through the hallway behind them. Run! James shouted, pulling her away. They escaped through the servants' tunnel, hearts racing. But everything had changed. The order wasn't just after Eleanor. They needed her. And now they knew she was ready to fight back. The vault key. The wind howled across the Yorkshire moors as Eleanor and James took refuge in a crumbling chapel nestled between 2 ancient oaks. Rain battered the stained glass windows, casting fractured colors across the stone floor. James lit a candle with trembling fingers, while Eleanor stared at her hands like they belonged to someone else. The vault key in my blood? She murmured. James nodded, still reeling. If what Ashcombe said is true, your family didn't just flee the order. They held the power to end it. Eleanor's breath caught. Her entire life had been lies wrapped in silence. And now she was the center of a storm centuries in the making. James unfurled an old map he'd stolen from the manor during their escape. There's something marked here, underneath this chapel. It says Sanctum Eternum. Latin for eternal sanctuary, Eleanor whispered. My mother used to say that when she tucked me in. They pushed aside a moss-covered altar. Beneath it, a hidden staircase spiraled into darkness. The air grew colder with every step, the walls tightening around them like a tomb. At the bottom, they found a circular chamber, lit by torches that flared to life as they entered. At the center stood a stone pedestal. Upon it, a silver locket, the same one Eleanor had worn as a child but lost years ago, glowed faintly. She reached for it. As her fingers touched the locket, it flared with light. Symbols etched along the walls lit up, pulsing like a heartbeat. Suddenly, a projection shimmered in the air, a memory recorded long ago. Her mother appeared, young and fierce-eyed. Eleanor, if you're seeing this, then I've failed to protect you. The Order seeks the vault key, hidden in your very being. You are the last of our line. Find the vault. Burn the Order. End the cycle. The vision faded, leaving only silence. Eleanor stood frozen, locket in hand. She knew. She knew this would happen. James stepped closer. You have a choice now. Hide forever, or fight. The Rising Flame. By dawn, Eleanor and James had reached the abandoned train depot hidden deep within the northern woods. A secret meeting place of those who had once rebelled against the Order. The place reeked of rust, oil and forgotten wars. Inside, a dozen figures in weathered coats turned as Eleanor entered. At the center stood Margaret Hale, a legend among the resistance once presumed dead. Well, well, Margaret said, her voice dry but commanding. The girl with the blood of traitors and saviors alike. I'm not here to be judged, Eleanor replied. I'm here to burn the Order to the ground. Margaret smirked. Good. Then we'll get along. James spread out the stolen documents from Lord Ashcombe's estate. These are troop locations, vault coordinates, even names of inner council members. With this we can strike. A grizzled man named Doyle leaned in. Strike where? We don't even know where the vault is. Eleanor opened her locket. The glowing symbols pulsed again, aligning with symbols on the documents. It's under Blackmere Abbey, she said. They've been hiding it in plain sight. Gasps filled the room. That place is cursed, Doyle whispered. Everyone who goes there vanishes. Or finds the truth, Eleanor snapped. Margaret stepped forward. You're not like your mother. I'm exactly like her, Eleanor said. But I'm not just surviving this war. I'm ending it. Silence hung heavy. Then Margaret nodded. We move at dusk. As the rebels prepared, Eleanor walked outside. The trees swayed under a gray sky. She could feel something, rage, resolve, fear, all boiling beneath her skin. James joined her. Do you believe we'll win? I don't need belief, she said, eyes fixed ahead. I need fire. He smiled faintly. You've got that. That night they loaded weapons, studied maps, and whispered final goodbyes. Eleanor tucked her mother's locket into her jacket. For the first time she didn't feel like a girl playing at rebellion. She felt like a storm. And the Order was about to face it. When the silence breaks, Blackmere Abbey loomed like a corpse in stone, its windows shattered, its walls scarred by time. The rebels approached under moonlight, their breath visible in the bitter air. Eleanor led them, her boots silent on the frost-laced ground. Inside, ancient pews lay broken. Statues watched with empty eyes. At the altar, a symbol pulsed, a mark identical to her locket. They built it right over the vault, Eleanor whispered. Margaret nodded. We blow the floor. Quick and loud. James set the charges while the others stood guard. Then a sound of footsteps, slow and deliberate. Too late, Eleanor hissed. Dozens of cloaked Order guards burst through the broken windows. Chaos ignited. Bullets, fire, screams. Eleanor ducked, fired, moved. James was beside her, shielding her as a blade sliced past. Margaret held the western flank, fierce like a cornered lion. A guard lunged. Eleanor shot him down, heart racing. Then the floor cracked. James had triggered the charge. With a roar, the altar collapsed, revealing a hidden staircase swirling downward into darkness. Go! Eleanor yelled. They plunged into the abyss. The vault was no myth, it was real. Endless corridors of books, relics, stolen lives. At the center, a crystalline chamber shimmered. In it a glowing scroll, her mother's final confession. Eleanor stepped forward. Her locket flared to life. As her hand touched the scroll, the vault pulsed with heat. Visions surged through her. Her mother's torture, betrayal, and sacrifice. She saw Ashcombe's lies, the manipulation, the rewired memories fed to a sleeping nation. Then silence. And clarity. She turned. Broadcast this to the capital. Every secret. Every sin. James accessed the relay system. The vault itself was a signal tower. With trembling hands, Eleanor pressed the final button. Across the nation, every screen flickered. Every citizen watched. The truth unspooled. When it ended, Eleanor stepped back above ground. The order had retreated, fractured by the broadcast. The people were rising. James found her alone among the ashes of the abbey. "It's done," he said.
No, Eleanor whispered.
"It's just beginning."